Well, joining us from Baltimore, Maryland, is the man behind the Twitter campaign, #ThisIsOurLane, founder of Doctors Demand Action, Dr. Joseph Sakran. And also joining us, Dan Roberts, a lifetime member and supporter of the National Rifle Association, who joins us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Very good morning to you both. Dr. Sakran, what did it feel like to be told that you were a self-important doctor opining on something which is not your lane when you are dealing with people who've suffered gunshot wounds far too regularly?
Well, good morning, Piers and Susanna. Thank you so much for having me. You know, when that communication came across, I think it was a real clear demonstration to me, to the medical community, and honestly to Americans all across this country, that the NRA is not serious about really moving the needle forward on this issue. You know, for those of us in the medical community, we are in the front line. We are front and center in taking care of these patients day in and day out. And so I think anyone that understands how complex of a problem this is will understand that no single person and no single organization can actually provide solutions on their own to fix this. And so really, we have to bring all the stakeholders together, and that includes gun owners.
Dr. Sakran, not only are you a trauma surgeon who deals with the aftermath of this, you have also actually been a victim of gun violence, haven't you?
That's correct, Susanna. When I was 17, I was nearly killed after being shot in the throat. And, you know, when something like that happens at such a young age, at least for me, it inspired me to go into medicine, to become a trauma surgeon, and then really figure out how do we work at that intersection of medicine, public health, and public policy so we can make communities safer all across this country.
Dan Roberts.
Let's go to Dan Roberts. The NRA, of which you're a loyal supporter, they lashed out at the doctors after the American College of Physicians published a position paper that called for greater research into the effectiveness of various gun restrictions and other risk factors for gun violence. Included support for universal background checks. We know that over 90% of Americans would agree with that. Counselling patients about safe, child-proof storage of guns in the home. We know over 500 kids a year die accidentally in the home from firearms. Consideration of waiting periods before purchasing guns to possibly reduce suicides, and a ban on ownership of the more military-style semi-automatic rifles like AR-15s, which have now become the preferred mass shooter's weapon of choice. It's very hard to understand, Dan Roberts, if you are not an NRA member, which of those suggestions and ideas you find so offensive, given the scale and volume of massacres in America involving guns is increasing and appears to be almost now on a weekly basis.
Well, I mean, where do we start? The source for the figure of 307 mass shootings thus far this year comes from an anti-gun group called, the name of it escapes me at the moment, the Gun Violence Archive. They have a well-documented and established history for playing fast and loose with definitions. They have counted things as quote-unquote school shootings that had basically a threadbare connection to a school. It's not a reliable source at all.
Okay, I didn't even
NPR,
sorry,
NPR,
just to stop you. I didn't even mention what you're rambling on about, all right? I simply put to you...
about mass shootings.
I simply put to you about the American College of Physicians suggesting a number of things to try and curb the unbelievably senseless eruption of mass shootings, which now appears to be happening on an almost weekly basis. We know that a year ago, a guy opened fire on 20,000 people at a music festival, killing 58 people. We know at Santa Fe High School in Texas, 10 people were killed. Churches have been attacked. Temples have been attacked. Everything is being attacked, Dan Roberts. And every time I talk to you, your only response to all this, your only answer is that we should just have more guns, right? More people need to be armed.
That's actually not true, Piers. I've offered several other suggestions, and it's interesting that the American College of Physicians didn't mention anything about stricter enforcement of existing law, extensive sentences for violent criminals that commit crimes with firearms, looking into the mental health issues in this country. It's always about, it's the NRA's fault, it's gun owners' fault, it's an easy scapegoat to avoid tackling much more difficult, but things that would actually produce tangible results.
Right, what is your objection? Let's go through some of these then. Universal background checks for everyone who wants to buy a gun. What's your objection?
Universal background checks. Universal background checks will not work for their stated purpose unless they are tied to a national firearms registry system, which is against federal law. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1965 criminals could not be held accountable under such a scheme.
So just to clarify,
because it would violate their Fifth Amendment rights.
So just to clarify, you do not see any reason why there should be background checks on everyone buying a gun.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
That's the implication
Please don't
of what
put words
you
in
said.
my mouth.
Do you think everyone
I'm telling you that
let me ask you the question more straight. Let me ask you in a simpler way. Do you personally believe that everyone in America wishing to buy a firearm should be subjected to a background check? Yes or no?
Sure, but it doesn't matter
Okay, then
if there's not...
then you agree with the American College of Physicians. Let's move to the next one.
That's good.
Right?
Then we're in the same lane.
Should patients be counselled about safe, child-proof storage of guns in the home? Yes or no?
No.
Why? Why would you not want to counsel
because
patients about safe storage of guns?
What qualifications and what specific training have doctors gone through to be considered experts on the subject?
Well, they're having to patch up the...
That doesn't make them an expert on firearm safe storage.
I would say it actually means that doctors who have to patch up the bodies of people who've been obliterated by gunfire probably are quite expert in the damage that gunfire can cause to human bodies. Yes.
So then you're arguing two different things. First, you were arguing about safe storage. Now you're arguing about being experts on repairing damage from bullets. They're two different things.
I just want to ask you, just before we finish this, the AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, we've debated this many times, but it clearly has become the preferred weapon of choice for almost every mass shooter. It can fire up to 100 bullets a minute. If you had a bump
Piers,
fire...
I've corrected you on that multiple times.
I know you have, and you're wrong, and we can debate that till the cows come home.
No, I'm not, and I can prove it.
If you put bump fire stock on it, it can fire 300 to 400 rounds a minute. You accept that, right?
Okay.
Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. Then people can go on, they can go and investigate this themselves. Here's my point. Why does any civilian, for home defence, for self-protection, why do they need a weapon like that? Why do they need something that is so destructive?
Piers, when are you going to accept the fact that the rights of Americans have absolutely nothing to do with the perceived need or utility of other people?
I guess what I would like to see in America, given the scale of these massacres,
where we look after each other.
I would like to see the rights of young children, of teenagers at school, of people attending church, of people attending a synagogue, of people going to a movie theatre, of people going to an outdoor music festival. I'd like to see their rights not to be shot dead, to be put over your right. To be put over your right to arm yourself like Rambo. That's really the bottom line.
Unfortunately for you, the Supreme Court has ruled multiple times that firearms, semi-automatic firearms and modern firearms are protected under multiple Supreme Court rulings.
Okay,
so they're not going to be going anywhere.
Yeah, the misappropriation of the wording of the Second Amendment in the last 30 years.
No, Piers, there isn't any. The only misappropriation
it never
is on
used
your
to be
side.
interpreted in the way it's now interpreted. The misappropriation...
That's absolutely not true.
The misappropriation of the Second Amendment has led to the carnage we're now seeing. It's not something that's unfortunate for me, Dan Roberts.
Piers,
it's something that's unfortunate. It's something that's unfortunate for the American people.
Piers, we had fewer shootings and looser gun laws in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up than we do now.
You have had half of the worst massacres involving guns in American history have happened in the last 15 years. Half.
Okay.
Do you accept that? Do you know that? Do you care about that?
Piers, really?
Really?
OK.
It's a fact.
We have to, Dan Roberts, we have to leave it there.
At some point, Dan, you guys have to change something. At some point, you have to do something about gun violence. Otherwise, you are not a civilized society. You become a society...
That's your opinion.
It is my opinion. It's based on the massacres we wake up to week after week.
And meanwhile, people like Dr. Sakran have to keep clearing up the mess and speaking to families in the wake of the violence. And we thank you both very much indeed for your time this morning.